The night sky trembles as flak bursts flash over the English Channel, painting the clouds with red veins of fire. Captain Arthur Leland's voice cracks through the headset, cutting through the chaos, steady but edged with disbelief. Something's different tonight. The German formation ahead isn't breaking as usual. It's simply vanishing. He watches tracer fire arc toward nothing, explosions blooming midair before the shells even touch metal. Sergeant Tom Dolly in the tailgunner's nest swears he saw a bomber disintegrate without a hit. "What the hell are we shooting?" he mutters. In a nearby bunker miles below, Dr. Edith Moran listens to the distant thunder of her creation, the radar fuse, doing its work for the first time. Her pulse races, pride and guilt colliding as she imagines invisible waves hunting for wings in the dark. Above the channel, Arthur whispers into the static. They never even saw it coming. The air falls silent, the radar hum echoing like a ghost. Would you trust the weapon that kills before you pull the trigger? Morning breaks cold and gray over the airfield. The bombers sit lined like sleeping giants, their wings dripping with dew and oil. Arthur steps down from his plane, boots sinking to the wet ground, unable to speak. He knows what he saw. Destruction without contact. Power without control. Tom joins him, still pale, muttering that the sky felt alive. Across the base, a jeep arrives carrying Edith, the quiet civilian whose invention ended last night's dogfight before it began. She walks past the crews, faces turning toward her as if she carries a secret no one dares ask about. Inside the operations hut, officers speak in low voices. They call it progress, but to Arthur, it feels like the war just changed its soul. In the underground lab, Edith explains the principle to brass-faced officers, a shell that senses a target by echo, exploding when the signal bounces back strong enough. They nod, already thinking of deployment, not consequence. Arthur listens from the corner, feeling as though he's watching humanity step off a cliff. He remembers the faces of the men who vanished in the sky, and for the first time, victory feels like mourning. Edith's voice falters when she says the word detonation. She looks down at her trembling hands, hiding them under the table as the officers applaud. That evening, Arthur walks the runway alone. The hangar doors groan open in the wind, revealing rows of polished shells stacked like sleeping serpents. Each one bears her initials, E.M., engraved for tracking. He kneels, runs his hand along one shell, and whispers, "What have we done?" The sound of engines testing in the distance makes him flinch. Somewhere, a mechanic laughs, unaware that the world just crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. In her quarters, Edith writes a report she can't finish. The words operational success stare back at her like an accusation. Outside, thunder rolls, not from storms, but artillery practice across the channel. She imagines each shell as a thought she can't take back. War has always demanded invention, but this one feels like betrayal. She folds the paper, sets down her pen, and whispers, "No one will ever see the sky the same again." Her voice trembles. Somewhere, another pilot climbs into a plane, loading another secret into the night. The sun rises pale over the English Channel, and the bombers line up on the runway like soldiers awaiting orders. Captain Arthur Leland scans the horizon through binoculars, noting every cloud and glint of light off the waves. Today is the first live test beyond the simulation, the first true combat deployment of radar fuses. Sergeant Tom Dolly checks the tail turret again, muttering a superstition about ghosts in the sky. In the operations hut, Dr. Edith Moran observes the radar screens, her finger hovering over the test readouts as if she could will them into perfection. The first German planes are spotted on the horizon, their sleek silhouettes drifting into range. Arthur swallows the tension and orders formation. The invisible hand is ready to strike, and none of the pilots know how precise it will be. The German bombers appear in small clusters, almost ghostly against the clouds. Arthur leads his squadron into formation, hands steady on the yoke. Tom braces in the tail turret, heart hammering as radar fuses hum quietly in the shells. One by one, the German planes flicker, a shimmer in the sky that no human eye can fully catch, and then explode before bullets even reach them. Shock and awe ripple through the RAF crews. Edith's voice trembles over the radio, reporting every detonation with precision, feeling both pride and horror at what she has unleashed. Above the clouds, Lieutenant Franz Adler's squadron falters. Entire formations vanish before his eyes, leaving only smoke trails and silent debris. He banks sharply, trying to regroup his pilots, but panic spreads faster than bullets. The invisible force of radar fuses has rewritten the rules of engagement. Back on the British side, Arthur glances at the scorched sky and whispers, "This isn't how we fight. This isn't fair." Tom shivers, sensing the unnatural precision of death. Edith watches, haunted, realizing that her calculations are no longer theoretical, they are catastrophic. On the ground, officers cheer the results. Screens flash green, targets destroyed, mission success confirmed. Yet Arthur feels hollow. He walks along the tarmac, watching debris drift from the horizon like falling leaves, thinking of the lives erased before the pilot even knew it. Tom avoids eye contact, muttering that it feels wrong to kill like that. Edith presses her lips together, guilt tightening around her chest. The invisible hand is flawless, but its perfection weighs like stone in their hearts. That night, Edith sits in her quarters, staring at a single shell in her palm. She turns it over, noticing the tiny etchings and circuitry she designed. In her reflection in the window, she sees not just herself, but the ghosts of pilots in the clouds, living and dead, and wonders if science has taken her beyond what she can control. Arthur's words from earlier echo in her mind, "This isn't fair." Outside, the wind whispers across the airfield, carrying the faint metallic scent of blood and ozone, the invisible hand at work. Even as sleep eludes them all, the sky above northern France is a canvas of smoke and fire. Captain Arthur Leland's squadron weaves through clouds, eyes scanning for enemy formations. But when the Germans appear, the scene defies reason. Entire squadrons shimmer, then vanish midair. Franz Adler shouts over the roar of engines, his voice breaking with disbelief. Where are they going? Back in the bomber. Tom Dolly grips the turret, every instinct screaming that the rules of war have changed. Edith Moran, watching from the radar station, notes each disappearance with trembling fingers. Pride battles horror, as she realizes the fuses are killing not just precisely, but invisibly. The invisible hand has become a weapon the mind cannot fully grasp. Arthur orders evasive maneuvers as tracer fire streaks past, but there is no impact. The enemy is already gone. Tom whispers prayers under his breath, the hum of radar shells filling the void left by vanished wings. Edith watches the monitor screens, the blinking lights marking each explosion with terrifying precision. She imagines the pilots she cannot see, lives erased before they even understood the danger. Franz Adler struggles to regroup his scattered squadron, panic mounting. Death is no longer about skill. It is about who sees it coming first. And no one sees it coming. One German formation explodes simultaneously in midair, the sound distant yet deafening in their minds. Arthur cannot celebrate. The precision of the radar fuse feels unnatural, cruel. Tom shivers, thinking of brothers lost in earlier raids. This was different. Edith records the data, aware that history is being written in fire and shattered metal. Franz Adler yells at his remaining pilots to hold position, but chaos has claimed them. The sky is no longer a battlefield. It is a trap, invisible, indifferent, and lethal. Aftermath hangs like a curtain. Debris drifts into the clouds below, silent except for the wind. Arthur radios command, voice trembling, reporting annihilation without a fight. Tom refuses to lower his eyes, staring at the empty space where men once flew. Edith sits alone in the radar bunker, mind racing. She created a weapon that can erase life before it's seen. Franz Adler, one of the few survivors, glances skyward with hollow eyes, realizing that in this war, death has become invisible, and survival a matter of luck, not skill. Night falls over the channel. Edith writes in her journal, words faltering under the weight of unseen destruction. Arthur walks along the empty runway, boots crunching on gravel, staring at the distant horizon. Tom keeps his helmet off, letting the cold wind whip his hair, unable to shake the memory of planes vanishing before his eyes. Franz Adler limps into a field, his squadron decimated, wondering if anyone will believe what happened. In every corner of the sky, the invisible hand of the radar fuse leaves, questions that cannot be answered, victories that feel hollow, and a terror that lingers like a shadow. The morning sky is gray and heavy. Captain Arthur Leland sits on the wing of his bomber, helmet off, staring at the clouds where countless planes once flew. Victory feels empty, a hollow echo in his chest. Sergeant Tom Dawley leans against the fuselage, silent, watching the horizon as if hoping the vanished pilots might reappear. Edith Moran walks up, holding her radar notes close to her chest. She avoids Arthur's gaze, knowing he sees what she cannot admit, that the weapon they wielded erased lives before they even understood danger. Words fail them both, replaced by the weight of unspoken guilt. Inside the operations hut, Edith studies the flight logs. Each dot on the radar represents a pilot who never saw the end coming. She traces the paths with her finger, imagining the fear, the confusion, the final moments. Her hand trembles as she realizes that in perfecting the radar fuse, she has removed the human element from death itself. Arthur enters quietly, glancing at the screens, understanding without words. The war may call it genius, but for them, the cost is personal, heavy, and impossible to ignore. At night, Arthur walks the runway alone, boots crunching on frost-hardened gravel. Each plane parked silently feels like a tombstone. He thinks of the pilots who vanished mid-flight, of the Germans and his own allies alike. Tom joins him, placing a hand on Arthur's shoulder. Neither speaks. The cold air presses against them, and for the first time, Arthur questions the morality of their success. Edith watches from the control tower, distant and small against the darkened sky, knowing that the invisible hand she unleashed cannot be called back. Edith sits at her desk, writing a personal log she will never submit. She admits the thrill she once felt at the precision of the fuses, but the excitement is gone, replaced by guilt. She imagines Arthur and Tom, their faces lined with the weight of what they witnessed. Outside, the wind carries the faint echo of distant engines and unspoken loss. Science has created a new god in the sky, precise, invisible, and merciless, and Edith wonders if humanity can live with its consequences. By dawn, the three gather near the edge of the airfield. Arthur finally speaks, voice low and broken. "We've changed the sky. Forever." Tom nods, silent, unable to dispute it. Edith's hands tremble as she folds her notes. They all feel the weight of a war waged by machines as much as men of death, delivered before choice, before courage, before chance. The invisible hand of the radar fuse has rewritten their understanding of combat, leaving only a quiet, hollow sky, and the question of whether victory is worth the price. Above the fading light of a smoky sunset, Arthur Leland tightens his grip on the yoke. The channel is quiet. Too quiet. Then, a flash in the clouds. Franz Adler appears, his Messerschmitt banking sharply, eyes locked on the bomber. Arthur steadies his squadron, heart hammering. This is no longer about orders or mission success. It is a confrontation of two men who understand the weight of invisible death. Tom whispers, "He's alone. Maybe that's mercy." Arthur knows it is something more, a reckoning in the sky, where every decision is measured by conscience, not strategy. Franz maneuvers, weaving through the vapor trails of vanished planes. He fires a quick burst, but the radar-fused shells detonate prematurely around his wingmen, scattering them. Arthur watches, frozen by the surreal precision of the weapon. Tom mutters under his breath that the Germans can't fight ghosts. Edith, observing through the radar feed, feels her stomach knot. She knows the consequences. Death, not delivered by skill, but by invention. Franz grits his teeth, knowing each maneuver is a gamble against something he cannot see. The chase twists across the fading horizon. Arthur fires, radar shells arcing through the clouds, detonating just as Franz tries to evade. Each explosion throws debris across the sky, painting chaos and silence. Franz realizes this is no ordinary fight. Every movement is tracked, every attempt anticipated. Tom shouts over the roar. It's like the sky itself is against him. Edith grips the edge of the radar table, feeling the moral weight of invisible victory pressing down on Olive. Franz banks sharply to escape, but the radar fuse tracks his position with uncanny precision. Explosions ripple around him as he narrowly avoids the wreckage of wingmen already lost. Arthur's hands shake, feeling the moral burden of his orders. Tom whispers, almost to himself, that war is no longer about bravery, but luck. Edith feels her heart pound, realizing the cost of innovation. She has created a weapon that can predict and punish with ruthless efficiency, and Franz is now trapped by it. A lone pilot hunted by science itself. At last, Franz spirals downward, exhausted, cornered by the unseen hand of the radar fuse. Arthur hesitates, seeing the fear in the enemy pilot's eyes, knowing this is not glory but judgment. Tom exhales slowly, realizing that the man above is as human as they are, just caught in a machine's perfection. Edith watches silently, understanding that her invention has removed choice from the sky. The sun dips below the horizon, painting clouds in red and purple, leaving Arthur, Tom, and Edith with a silence that echoes louder than any explosion. The last dogfight is over, but the moral war has only begun. Arthur sits at a small wooden desk in a quiet corner of the base, the hum of distant engines a muted reminder of what they've unleashed. A letter lies in front of him, untouched, its blank pages heavy with meaning. He thinks of the men who vanished midair, of the invisible hand that decided life and death before anyone could act. With a deep breath, he picks up the pen and begins writing to Edith, not as a scientist or officer, but as a man struggling with conscience. Each word weighs like lead. Admiration for her brilliance tangled with the horror of what it has wrought. He writes of precision and power, of victories that felt hollow, and of the moral burden that cannot be shared with others. He recalls the moment entire German formations vanished mid-flight, the chaos, the silence, the fear etched into every survivor's memory. His words stumble over guilt and awe, confessing that the weapon was more godlike than human, and questioning whether anyone can ever fully live with its consequences. Each sentence trembles with honesty, a raw acknowledgement of responsibility he cannot escape. Edith receives the letter the next morning, finding it left carefully on her radar desk. She hesitates, hands hovering over the paper. Slowly, she unfolds it and reads. Arthur's words hit her with the weight of truth, praise mingled with sorrow, admiration laced with guilt. He writes of invisible destruction, of the men who vanished before they could see danger, and of the cost of brilliance without accountability. Edith feels both understood and condemned, each sentence echoing in her chest. The radar screens hum quietly, the ghosts of the sky watching silently. She reads the words twice, then sets the letter down, tracing the edges with trembling fingers. For the first time, she allows herself to feel the full weight of what they have done. Each pilot lost, each formation vanished, each life ended without warning, It all rests on her invention. Edith's chest tightens with guilt. Yet she also feels a strange relief someone else sees it too. Someone who understands the burden of knowledge and the impossibility of erasing consequences. Edith folds the letter carefully and tucks it into her notebook. She stands looking out the window at the quiet airfield below, empty, except for parked bombers and curling morning mist. The war continues, the fuses still lethal. The invisible hand still at work. But now she feels the shared weight of conscience. Arthur's words have become a mirror, reflecting the cost of brilliance and the fragility of human morality. They are no longer alone in this knowledge. And the acknowledgement does not erase guilt, but it gives it shape, a form they can carry together. Years later, Edith Moran stands at a quiet museum exhibit. The display case holds a single radar fuse, gleaming under the soft lights. She traces the metal with her finger, memories flooding back. The vanished formations, the terrified pilots, the invisible hand she unleashed. She can still hear the faint hum of radar pings in her mind and the ghostly echo of explosions midair. The war is over, but the moral weight endures. Each life erased remains a silent voice, and Edith feels the lingering pulse of history in the cold, polished metal before her. A child tugs at her coat, pointing curiously at the fuse. Edith bends down, smiling faintly, trying to soften the weight of her memories for the innocent eyes before her. She wants to explain, but no simple words can carry the story of invisible destruction, of lives erased mid-flight, of conscience strained by brilliance. She pauses, then whispers softly, "It's what made the sky quiet." The child nods, satisfied, unaware of the depths behind her words. Edith walks along the museum hall, her steps echoing softly. Photographs of bombers, pilots, and radar equipment line the walls. She pauses at a black and white photo of a young Arthur Leland, helmet in hand, smiling faintly before his own conscience bore down on him. She remembers his letter, the shared weight of guilt and acknowledgement, and the invisible hand that changed the sky forever. The hum of distant voices and faint museum noises blend with the echoes in her mind, a ghostly reminder of what was lost and what was remembered. She stops at a display showing faded flight logs and radar charts. Fingers brush over the paper edges, imagining the pilots who vanished midair and the crews who fired the fuses without fully understanding their reach. Each record is a silent testament, a mark of precision and loss. Edith feels the ache of years past. The invisible hand remains, etched in memory, proof of brilliance that cannot be untangled from the cost it demanded. Finally, Edith steps outside into the open courtyard. The sky stretches wide, calm, and pale. She takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past settle gently. The war, the radar fuses, the invisible hand, all remain, but now contained in memory and reflection. The sky is silent, but it carries every echo of what once flew through it. She closes her eyes, whispering to herself, "We can never unsee, but we can remember." The light touches her face as she gazes upward, the past and present merging in quiet understanding.